Hello YouTube artist, I'm Kelly Hernig and welcome to In the Studio. This is actually part 2 of this sketchbook, but it's a finished sketchbook now. So I will link part 1 in the video description box below. But I wanted to share first the inspiration and how this kind of different style of doing art came about. And that all started with this book. This book is The Right Word, the Roger and the Thesaurus. It is by Jen Bryant, but Melissa Sweet is the illustrator. And I love Melissa Sweet. I've done a lot of studies with her. And this really was the first book that got me really interested in her artwork. You can see these are all vertical pieces of art. And this is what my sketchbook is based off of, because I was totally intrigued by the idea of making long vertical stripes. I know it sounds weird, but I was totally enamored by seeing this the first time. You know, look at, it's a lot of vintage ephemera that she scanned in, but then there's artwork all tucked in, and I really love that. So let me show you how I've designed a sketchbook around this. For this sketchbook, it is called an octopus sketchbook. It is by C. White of Brighton. There are 8 different panels, which is why it's called the octopus. The size is 5.8 by 8.3, and I really liked working in this sketchbook. It is more like mixed media paper. If you have a concertina sketchbook, it's that same kind of paper. But each one of these little arms, as I'm calling them, so you've got 2 sides, but I've only worked on one side. So you can see that you pull it out. So here is the first panel and then the second panel, but all together you have like 4 panels per side. And then you flip it over and you have 4 more on this side. And what I did was I just worked on one side so that I had 8 finished pages. And I'm considering one of these arms as a page. And my inspiration for this book came from the Flowers of Provence. And I did a flip through of this in part 1. So I'm not going to do that, but you'll see some of the pictures as I go along. I also have, I shared the first 3 little pages with you in the first one. But so let me go to this one and I'll get back to those pages. But the first thing I want to do is explain how I'm doing my verticals. I know it's pretty exciting. So let me go to my tabs here. You can see I've got all my pages tabbed. And this was the first picture that I was inspired by. Now, when doing something like this, that is way too overwhelming for me. I mean, look at the gorgeousness of this picture. Isn't that beautiful? I wouldn't even know where to start, really. It's just very complicated. So for me to get my stripes, I took a regular mat board. So this is a regular mat board, and I cut it on opposite corners. See that? So I just cut it on opposite corners. What happens now is this is the perfect crop tool. So by overlapping them, see, you can change the size to real skinny, to square, to rectangular, to whatever you want. So this is what I use to get my verticals and kind of search for them in the design. So I was taking little slivers like this and really kind of searching, like, what did I want to discover? Ooh, look at that. It gives you a nice light area, but it also gives you a nice dark area here. And then you've got all kinds of flowers in different stages. And let me bring this up so you can see that. See the light there and the dark, and then all those different flowers. So that is how I went picking my designs. And I want to share with you, a friend and I were working in this book together, and we came up with a couple things to keep us focused on our painting and what we were getting out of it. So when you look at this picture, I want you to think of, what would your palette look like? So this was my palette. Let me bring you a little closer. So I was really loving the vase down here. That green was almost shocking. It felt like very electric to me, especially in the highlight here and the dullness. So there I've got the brightness and then the dullness. I like the red center, so that is this color. I like the idea of the backgrounds too, with it having such light but such dark at the same time. So there's my light and there's my dark. So that was the palette that I started out with. And then this down here is a way to color mix. So because I have 5 colors, I took the color green here, this really bright green, and I wanted to see what the other 5 colors would do when mixed with this green. So you can see that color is here, that color is here, this color is here, and this color is here. And let me bring this up so you can see all my pluses and minuses. So this plus this color equals that. This, see the little plus sign, plus this color equals that. This plus this color equals this one. And this plus this equals this. So isn't that really a nice way to do it so that you can see what it's going to make? And I was really enamored by this color and this color. I like that this still was a green, but it was almost like a green gray. And this was a lighter green gray. And I really, really liked seeing that. And I wouldn't have known that had I not mixed the colors. So one of the other things with the pictures here, I want you to think about, what would you title that? What would you give as a title for this artwork? Because that's the questions that I asked myself. And then are there 3 keywords that you would give that, or you would say you're feeling with that picture? And then I want you to think of, is there a hidden treasure? So for me, it was real important to like, what are you going to focus on? So my words here, so I've got them on the next page here. I titled this The Day's Bounty because I pictured going out and just chopping this off of my tree and bringing them in and enjoying their beauty. The 3 keywords that I used to describe this for myself was overflowing, abundant, lush, and beautiful, because I really like this area down here. It just felt so full and so alive, and I really, really love that. The mood for me was European, romantic, and moody. The treasure for me was the luminous green tones of the pottery there. Just that little brightness. And let me bring that up so you can really see. Look at the greenery there. Isn't that lovely? So then I did a little sketch because this particular book does not have page numbers. So I did a little sketch to remind me what the page looks like. And then I set out to do my little stripes. And I also have a piece of vintage paper. I wanted to try working on vintage paper to see what it would do and if I would like working on it. Because with this vintage paper, especially this was from an old ledger, the water and the paint kind of sits on top for a long time and then it soaks in. It's almost like this is polished a little, if that makes sense. I think it's just from being the age and the wear. You can see it's a little yellow on the outer edges. It was really interesting seeing the difference of here versus here on the paper, the way that it reacted, because it's like more mixed media paper, it just kind of sank in right away, where this just kind of sat on top like, I'm here, let me dry, and then after a while, it just like, it's all gone in, like the paper has finally sucked it in. And I found that really interesting. So when I was looking for things like this, whenever I'm doing a picture that is this overwhelming, I'm looking for areas that I'm interested by. So of course the vase was one of the first ones that I wanted to do. So I was like cropping it. I cropped it really long and skinny. Let's make sure you can see that. I cropped it really long and skinny, but then I'm like, you know what? I want to be as close to this vase as I can because that is the area that I'm really interested in. So I kept bringing it down, and let me see where I was. I was about right here. So I like seeing the little touch of the brown of the pot and then the bright green and then a little bit of these flowers. Let me bring it up close there so you can see that. So isn't that pretty? So that was this area here. That's how I interpreted it. And you can see just by taking little pieces, this, I really like the handle. So again, I went to the handle and I went to the dark areas here. So you see the brightness of the handle down here, but then there's flowers and then there's another dark area. Look at that. So here is my flower handle, the flowers, the dark area. And that's how I discovered all of these little pieces. So when you pull this all out, I picked one flower or one subject that I really wanted to study a little bit more. And one of the flowers had these really interesting values on the leaves. So that is how this entire sketchbook is done. And I'm going to run through the sketchbook now that you kind of understand what it is. And I will share the pictures with you as well. Okay, and this was the one I just shared with you with the bright green vase. And then this picture here, this was a cup. Let me find that picture for you so you can see what I'm doing. So this was the picture of the art that I was going to do. Isn't that lovely? I was really enamored with the brightness of the glasses and how, see in the glass here, like the grapes are hidden, so they're not as dark or as bold as the ones above it. So this was what I did for that page. I called it Enchanted Remnants. Isn't that kind of cool? Because I like the way that the grapes sat inside and outside the glass. So this was my palette here. This was my area that I studied. Isn't that pretty? I really like this. I liked it because I was very bold here, if you'll notice that. I like the little tendril with all of these off wisps of that. And it is right here in the middle of the book. Look at that wild tendril. Isn't that cool? And I like the way the light hit it. Do you see on the tendril itself, it has a light side and a dark side? So I was trying to catch that in the book there. And I think it did a pretty good job. And then this one was just an up close of the tendril because that is what really like kind of sparked my interest. Okay, the next page, this piece. For me, I just really loved everything about this piece. What did I call it? I gave it a title of Summer's Bounty. And I can tell you the area that I really was intrigued by was the way the seeds lined up inside of the cantaloupe. Isn't that kind of cool? So this was my palette. And it was very earthy, to me, very summer. This was the sketch. This was the area that I wanted to focus on, and I'll show you that in a minute. But this was the areas that I studied. So it was really about the orange of the cantaloupe. Here was the seed structure that I really, really liked. I liked these yellow flowers, but I didn't want to create them as full flowers. I think they're more interesting having them kind of off and on the page. This area here is leaves mixing with the skin of the cantaloupe. And then this was an area where there was a flower, some like loose tendrils, and then there was this purple flower here. So the purple flower is over here. Can you see it right there? I just thought that's kind of cool, just stuck off of the edge. And here's a little better color so that you can see it. And here's like the pear with all those leaves going over it. And so it's giving you that orange feel in the greens. And I really, really like that. So the next one is this one. Look at that beautiful, it's a mold of her hand, and then all of these orange flowers. I really, really like that, and a butterfly here. So I called this one The Arrival because I like the way that this kind of looks like it's like sliding in, you know, like it's slowly arriving and letting us see it. That's how I looked at that. This was my color palette that I chose. you can see that I was really liking these greens back here, and I didn't really care for this bright, more orangey color. I like the richer, deeper color here. And so let me show you what I did with that. Again, this was my little sketch of the hand. This was my item of interest, and you can see that right here. Do you see that little water drop right there? Let me see if I can bring that closer. So that was the study that I wanted to do with that little water drop. And I've got the little water drop on there. It's kind of hard to see, but it's there. There it is. And then when I went inside, I was really having fun playing with the dark and light of the dark leaves with the light background, and then that's that dark rose. I really had fun with this darker color and the butterfly showing up in two different ways. So here it's kind of cast in shadow, here it's in light. So you get two different plays on the color. You can see that's much more bright than that is. And I really liked the idea of this was just the center of one of the flowers. And I cropped it really tight and really long so that I could play with the flowers there. And the next one was this one. It's just a field of irises. Now, when I first looked at this, I thought this was lavender. And then upon closer inspection, you can see they're all irises. So I thought those were really pretty. And then there's a closer picture of irises here, but this was the page that we picked. So from that, this was my color palette. You can see it's soft. I really liked the softness of the green and the purple, how they played off each other. Squint your eyes and you really don't see a big difference there. And I like that. So let me show you how I did that. This one I called Yellow Roses. Now, did you see yellow roses anywhere in that picture? Let me bring you up. It's right here. Now I want you to see in this book, so there's yellow roses here, but there's also little areas of orange back there, like a secret garden. That's kind of how I looked at it. Although you're looking at all of these beautiful purples, and then I called it yellow roses. So what that would do is make you search for those yellow roses. And again, that was my picture of the page. This was my bush of yellow roses. And this was how I captured the scene. Now in this one, I really loved seeing the mountains in the background and then the sky. And I love this like muted green going into the muted purples. And for me, I wanted to do scene by scene next to one another so that you can see the mountains going over and then the tree trunk so that you kind of give a little deeper understanding. So this is one area, and then I scooted over this way in the photo a little bit. And then here I just really wanted to study the idea of the irises in the grasses. And then this was just a singular iris that I saw with some little ones up above so that I knew that those were irises. And in this one here, I wanted to capture a whole big head of the iris because there's one little one here in the foreground. Can you see it? It's kind of nicely defined and it's got two little ones here. So that was actually this one. And then I just made it bigger here so that I could understand that it was a really, really lovely iris. So that was the sketchbook. Now I'm going to run through it for you one more time without all of my explanation, just so that you can see the art. and that's Octopus Sketchbook. Inspired by the Flowers of Provence, but styled by Melissa Sweet. I hope this gives you a way to look at things differently by capturing them in the long rectangles. It was just such a different and unexpected way to do art, and it had me so excited. And I want you to think about circles and squares and horizontal bars and vertical bars, triangles. Try a freeform shape. It doesn't have to be as structured as I had it, but giving yourself a different way to look at a piece of art. You know, just flipping to a page here and coming up with a beautiful way to do this. So think of a circle here, or think of a circle over here. Or, I mean, just look at the beauty of that in a square. Think of a square this way. Think of a square this way. It's going to give you a different version every time because your shape is changing and your picture is changing. It's just a way to challenge you to find beauty in a not so ordinary way. I want it to be spectacular. I want it to be unexpected. Like, why did she use a square? Why did you use a long rectangle? What's with that triangle shape? Those are the things that I want you to be inspired by. The things that aren't common, the things that make you think outside the box and look at art in a new and interesting way. Please leave me a like or a comment if this sketchbook has inspired you to try something new. If you're not a subscriber, please click the box and click the bell so you'll be notified of any new videos. And as always, thanks so much for watching.